All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I have a cool little PowerPoint for us to follow along. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and to, just take the time for yourself. This is really for you. As always, just make sure to follow our School of Humankind social media if that's where you came from, or if you happen to see this somewhere else, make sure you check out the School of Humankind. It is a wonderful community we are building where many different diverse backgrounds and personalities and people with magnificent ideas, we all come together and share what we have, either in common or differences, and we just create a space for all of it. So make sure you become a part of it. Get into the email chains that we have, get into the social media. You'll get some really awesome perspectives from various parts that can be super helpful as you move along with your life. And that's kind of what we're going to be doing today. Just be looking at different aspects of your life and how can you maximize your year without the hustle culture mentality that we've been just fed and bombarded with in the past, I don't know, decade, as it continuously grows. But that is not what we're going to do here. So I want to share with you why it came to my heart to do this and share it with you. This is something that I've been working on, and I typically do every year at the beginning of the year. I don't subscribe to the idea of the um, New Year resolutions. I think, it works for people. For some people, it doesn't work for me. So I had to really become intentional about what can I do that speaks to me that will help me get where I'm going or keep me in the direction of the path or the place that I want to go. So, a couple of years back, probably even before I completed my graduate program and all of the things that we're supposed to do when we're young adults and the expectations, my idea of planning my year was around what can I do this year to get ahead? Or what can I do this year to make more money? Or what can I do this year to just do more and become more relevant and become more successful? Successful was the word of the month, as I was thinking about this, and you might even see it on social media now. This push for getting back either on fitness or on your professional journey. Like there's just this idea that at the beginning of the year, something must start. And that didn't really sit well with me. One, because I have always felt that pressure of having to perform well, having to do a lot. I became a perfectionist. I'm in the process of deprogramming myself from being a perfectionist. But it took a lot of years to look at my beginning of the year and subscribing to these ideas and really feeling empty. So 2 months in, 3 months in, I would catch myself not following through with my goals, not following through with the things that I would write on my to-do list, and really just feeling like I was when you have to do something, you really don't want to do it, but you feel like you have to, and you feel that soul-sucking experience. 2 to 3 months in, that's where I was. So fast forward to a couple of years back, I became asking myself, what is it that I want? I know that setting New Year's resolutions or setting a big goal for the year is what other people have found it helpful for themselves, but what do I want? I kind of went down this rabbit hole of, well, if I don't subscribe to those ideas, if that doesn't speak to my soul and who I am, then what does? So then I started really having different conversations, either with friends or following people that I admired and reading their books and their blogs and trying to understand what was it that people did for themselves and how did they get there, without having to fall and follow what everybody else was doing. And I found that everybody had a very personal, unique experience as to setting their goals and becoming intentional about following through and really just only doing the things and setting goals that really spoke to them. So this was a very unique and individual experience. So that was the first thing. I realized, okay, well, this has to be something that is not like everybody else's journey, but it definitely can help me kind of get an idea. So I had different conversations, and like I said, I had some books and things, and but I actually had to really get down with myself and self-reflect on what do I even want? We have the idea of wanting to achieve wealth or health or beauty standards, but a lot of it, yeah, it's ideal, but it wasn't what I wanted. So then I had to really get down to the root of that, which led me to figuring out, well, what were my values? Who am I when no one's looking? What are the things that I go to when things get difficult? What are some of the things that I rely on when I don't have anybody else to ask? And those are the things that really are going to guide your first step. Now, again, this is something that worked for me. I'm sharing it so that you can get an idea and maybe create your own path. But for me, being very clear with who you are in terms of how do you want to show up as a person? How do you want to be remembered? What are some of the things that remain consistent and constant in your life and the way that you interact with yourself and others? And I added a list of various different values here just so you can have an idea. But it can be anything. For me, growth is probably one of the values that I remain the most consistent with because it reminds me of not ever fully being there wherever we think we're going to get there when we achieve or accomplish. It's that ongoing reminder of things change and we have to grow from that. And with growth comes loss and accepting that part of the growth process. And so growth for me is brings all of my other values into place, which um, for me can be kindness, it can be openness. Um, I'm going to talk about the values that we need to identify that are within ourselves right now, the things that we know are there. I will say our values can sometimes be a little skewed. Sometimes we can have values that represent darker parts of us, if you will. And those are some that we have to be aware of because they also drive our behavior and our thoughts and emotions. So, one value that I held, which did not know was a value until I started to do this inner work, was perfectionism and trying to I'm being very vulnerable here, but outdo everybody else. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to do it well, and I wanted to be the first one. Um, and although some may argue that that may be a positive value, for me, it was something that was causing pain. It was something that was causing a constant reminder of not being enough and held me back from from the life that I wanted to live. So that was a value that I prescribed myself to, perfectionism, just trying to have everything perfect, which we know it's impossible. But I tried. So I became clear as to what were my values, the good, positive, and the challenging and darker ones. And I wrote them down. I did a list. And then I realized, well, I don't necessarily have to keep these values because they can change. So then, what are my desired values? And I have added a little prompt here on the screen so you can write it down and do some self-reflection of your journaling if you find this helpful. But what are some of the desired values that we want to embrace? For me, perfectionism was not working. So sometimes humility felt better for me. Um, Being able to know when I'm not doing something well and accept myself in that way, being humble enough to understand that, or have the humility to understand that I don't and will not always get it right, and that's okay. I can only do better when I know better, and my job through my growth value is to learn to know better. so that I can do better. That's this little cycle that we get into. But the values is what will drive your thoughts and your behavior and yourself as you move forward, is the things that are going to help you when things get difficult. So, what are the things that you desire? What are the values that you desire to have? Maybe for example, myself, I'm a very sarcastic person. So I had to become very intentional about kindness. If sometimes my sarcasm was violent and would hurt people's feelings or would just throw people off. And I had to remember that although that is a part of me, I needed to approach my interactions with kindness. So then you start to figure out what are some of the values that I would like to envision in myself or envision as I move forward this year, and how can I you know, identify what are some of the things that I want to be like. And I know this is kind of a little abstract, but think of yourself in a year from now doing the same activity. What are some of the things that you wish are different in that point? What are some of the values you no longer wish to have? And what are some of the values you are working on to become a better person for yourself and for those around you, and those people that interact with you? So, this is something that you'll definitely spend some time doing. I personally feel like this is not a one and done. You don't sit down and figure these things out. So I would invite you to either take some time in the evening, morning, whenever you feel the most at peace, and do some self-reflection and keep working on this as you go. So that once you get this very clear, we can move to the next part, which is more reflection. You'll find that we're going to do a lot of self-reflection. Um, our intentional resets, what what kind of person do you want to be? And I did add a professional and personal in case you're trying to do different ones. Um, I personally would say just do person. That would definitely translate into your work life and your professional life. But definitely, once you know what your values are, they will be the guiding compass in this path that you're going to get into. So then, now that you have a compass, what kind of person do you want to become? What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? For a long, long time, I wanted to be active and healthy, and I wanted to, have the healthy meals from Pinterest and all the cutesy stuff. But that truly, at the time, was not important to me. I aspired for that type of lifestyle, but it wasn't something I was ready to commit to. And I have to become very honest with myself. What are some of the changes I may have to make in order to have that lifestyle? What kind of changes I may have to make to become that person? So in my case, I was surrounded by people who valued um, the nightlife and staying up late and sometimes get into reckless situations. So then in the morning, I didn't have no energy to get up and cook no healthy breakfast and none of that stuff, right? I would sleep in late. I would, um, be disconnected from family and friends because either I was too sick to reach out or just not in the mood. I was just too exhausted to do anything with family. And that was contradicting my behaviors and what I was committing to what I wanted. And it wasn't until I became clear and had that clear and honest conversation with myself that I started to realize, okay, I want to go right, but I keep going left with my behaviors. I keep committing to the same things, expecting a different result. And if you know, maybe the definition of that is insanity, right? We try to keep repeating ourselves and hoping for a different outcome. It's not going to happen. So this is when you start to have those tougher conversations with yourself. What are some of the things? Maybe different friendships, maybe having difficult conversations with friends, or it may be reaching out to those healthier or different friends that you want to be around so that they support the lifestyle that you want to have. Whatever that may be, it is totally personal and individual. These are just some of the three things that I ask myself when I'm going through this, and then you'll find that more questions may come up. Um, and then lastly, what kind of impact do I want to have through my work? And that can be anything. This is where I bridge the gap between work life as we know it and work just as a human experience. So maybe you do art, maybe you do um, baskets, sunglasses, I don't know, whatever it is that you feel is your work in this world. Maybe it is just showing up for friends. Whatever it is that you feel your work is, aside from our work life, our 9 to 5, whatever pays our bills. Um, that is one thing that I want you to start focusing on. What kind of impact do you want to have through that? And are you giving it the attention that it deserves? For a long time, I neglected my photography that I love doing. And I wanted to have a positive impact through the images that I was creating. And I neglected that for a long time because I felt like my 9 to 5 was way more important. And although I was having some positive impact, what fed my soul was not just a 9 to 5. It was everything else that I was doing with my hands that I was contributing to the collective. Um, so this is a kind of like two-sided question. Your work as you see it, anything that just you feel it's your contribution to the world, but also if you want to become more practical, what kind of impact do you want to have through your 9 to 5? If that's the case, then what kind of work do you want to do? Maybe you're in a job where you really don't identify what the goals or missions and values of the company, and you feel like you're not really making an impact, but maybe you can't get out because reality, I mean, we all have to stay in some sucky jobs for sometimes. So, what impact do I want to have through that? Um, I think one of the times that I have the most fun in my professional life was when I was waitressing. When I would go and just meet people and hear their stories and become close and connect with others that were just passing by. Um, my impact was for them to have a good experience, to be able to nourish themselves, for them to come in and sit down and enjoy a good time and be able to just take a break from everything else that was happening. That to me was important. So that was the kind of impact that I was having. Did I want to waitress for the rest of my life? No, but I figured while I'm here, I'm gonna have fun. That's kind of where I came up with the idea. If I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna make it fun. I'm gonna have fun. At least even if I don't, if it's something that I don't like, or something that I don't envision myself doing for a long time. Um, so again, ask yourselves what kind of impact do you want to have through any of those different styles of work as you're thinking about this. And then once you get through the difficult discussions and you start to think, well, maybe this year I may have to go hiking more or spend more time outside rather than inside in front of my computer, whatever it is. Write it down, put it on paper, start getting ideas of what this is going to look like. Is because remember, we have to become intentional about what we're going to do this year. We are not going to follow nobody else's recipe. We're not going to follow nobody else's um, idea of success. This is our idea. So whatever comes up through this reflection and this journaling or however you're doing this, write it down, get an idea of what do you envision for yourself. And then here's when it gets a little bit more murky is not the right word, but that's what I'm going to use for now. Because now we've identified our values, we have our guiding compass, we have our destination, we have an idea of where it is, what direction I want to take while I'm doing all of this. Now we have to figure out what matters most as we're going through this day to day. Things will happen, life will not stop. So we're gonna have to be juggling a little bit of these different things. To begin with, I kind of broke it down just to make it more easy. Um, to begin with, the first things I started doing was a wheel of life. I would reflect on this every 6 months, like beginning of the year, and then summer-ish time, I would do another one. And then maybe at the end of the year, I would do another one. If you're familiar with the Wheel of Life, it's just a big circle. You identify different aspects of your life, and then you rate your either how good you feel like it's going or where do you feel like you're at. So, for example, it's a circle, and then you do self-care, for example, you put that there, and then you rate it from 1 to 10. 1 sucks, 10, it's going great. I'm very committed to my self-care right now. I'm going to give it a 10. So then you get a pretty good picture of how your life is and where you stand. Sometimes you'll find that maybe work is not great, but family is doing very well. Or self-care is great, but you're not eating very well. So then you start to kind of get an idea of where you're at. Um, it just gives you a snapshot of your life as you're experiencing it. Okay, so you do that, get a snapshot, then you start to write a priorities list. This year, what are the things that you want to prioritize? It could be health, it could be being outside more, becoming more active. Um, so then you start to write what are some of the priorities, not just for success, okay, air quotes, not just things that will make you money and make you feel important, but things that will nourish you as you're going through this. Because remember, we have a direction to get to, a place to get to at the end of the year, but we want to make sure that our priorities don't get skewed. This would happen a lot to me when I would say, I want to spend more time with family, but then I would have a 9 to 5, do a part-time job, do an internship all at once, and I would have no time to see anybody. So my priorities were completely disconnected with the life that I was leading. So um, you get an idea of what are some of the things you want to keep constant as you move forward. Okay. So those are the what do I want? What do I want to have this year? And then your ongoing goals. This can be your school, this can be um, your work, this can be your business, this can be all of those long-term goals that we have to keep working on, but are not necessarily going to change anything else. So they're still a part of us. We're still adults or young adults or whoever it is that's watching this. We still have things that we have to do, right? So those are the things that we have to keep in mind. We have to keep a roof over our head. So we have to work to be able so we can pay our bills. Um, so those are the things that we want to make sure continue throughout the year. And then we're going to figure out how they come in together. Okay, so just stay with me. So we're going to figure out those ongoing goals. And then we're going to figure out how they fit into our priorities list. Because remember, if we want to be outside more, but we work in an office all day long, we have to figure out how those are going to come together. And then you're going to use your wheel of life to get a snapshot of how these priorities may actually have an impact on the way that you feel about your life. So hopefully I haven't lost anybody. And in order to do all of this, this is where I'm going to ask you to give yourself so much grace because, again, I've told you I'm deprogramming from perfectionism. It doesn't mean that some days I want my day to be perfectly scheduled and everything to fall into place. I still want that. It doesn't happen. So what I really try to strive for is having harmony. So, or experiencing harmony. So for me, once I figure out where my life was and my priorities and my goals, I figured, okay, so there will be days that I may not be able to fully engage in the things that I have to do. Maybe even like myself today, I'm having a little bit of an off day. I have a bunch of things that I have to do, but I have to be able to create some harmony between what are the things that I know I have to get done and yeah, do they really have to get done today? Or can I have a slower day where I enjoy my tea in the morning, where I take my dogs out for a walk? Because remember, your priorities is going to determine how you create that harmony. So this is where you have to practice accountability with yourself and say, I decided that this year I want to be outside more often. I'm going to continue using that example. So then if I have a pretty demanding job and a pretty demanding lifestyle, because maybe there's family, maybe there's kids involved, how can I create space between that to create harmony between what I have to do and the roles that I have to fulfill, but also do the things that bring me joy and bring me peace. That may be, for example, today, a 5-minute walk outside, a 10-minute walk. That may be making sure that I eat well so that I'm not hungry and upset and whatever. You start to create those things and bring them together. I also put alignment here on this screen because at the end, once you get an idea of this, and it may take you 1 year, 2 years, it continues to evolve for me. You start to find alignment between your values, who you are as a person, and the kind of life that you live. So remember when I shared that story about myself in the past where I wanted to have this lifestyle, but I was living and behaving in this other ways. There is no alignment. So when you start to become clear about your values and prioritize the things that matter the most to you, you start to kind of have this alignment of, I today don't feel the need to do things that are just for public praise. I no longer feel the need to do things perfectly. Sometimes I'm very uncomfortable doing things that I feel are not perfect, but I'm okay. I no longer feel this anxiety. So now my values, who I am, and the life that I live is in alignment with the direction that I'm going. So two different things. Harmony are the things that you're going to have to do on a day-to-day, where you're going to start to plug in those priorities, whatever they may be. And alignment is going to be your long-term experience when you start to feel the difference and the shift from previous years when maybe you were setting goals to just have more money. Maybe this year you become more comfortable with the idea of, maybe I don't need more money. Maybe I just need to change the way that I spend and the way that I live. That's something that's changing for me right now. I thought I wanted to live a very wealthy and luxurious life, and it turns out that it's not something that feeds my soul. It's not something that's for me. What feels right for me is taking care of the money that I make and reconciling that relationship with money and using it wisely instead of becoming reckless. So my alignment has become more clear. And my goals and my priorities have changed. So I hope that this is helpful. I think that is going to definitely be a process of a lot of self-reflection, a lot of grace that you're going to have to give yourself. And I say that because, again, speaking from my own experience as a perfectionist, once I figured this out and I laid it out, I wanted to get it right. I wanted it to be perfect. And it wasn't, because some days my priorities were not priorities because I was still seeking and wanted to fulfill the need of public appraisal. And at the time, that's what I needed. And I did things that were not in alignment with who I wanted to be. But I was able to identify that now and look back at the week or the day or the event itself and realize, oh, okay, I was coming from a place of need rather than a place of authenticity. And you start to kind of see yourself in different ways with more compassion and more love, because a lot of the things that I find we do on the internet, it's just to fulfill a need. It's to fulfill something that's missing inside. And I don't think it's something that we do because we're bad, or, whatever the negative word can be plugged in there. I think it's just part of the human experience. We look for ways to fill these needs that we have. And when we don't have the resources available to us, for example, in my case, when we don't have someone in the room with you saying, hey, that's actually really good, you seek that from somewhere else. And we tend to do that sometimes in destructive ways. And that's okay, as long as we become aware of what we're doing, as long as we're repairing whatever damage we're causing through this journey. I think we're allowed to be imperfect. And I think we're allowed to give ourselves that grace and compassion that we often give others so quickly. So, a quick recap. Okay, I know that this may have gone a little fast, but quick recap of what this process looks like to me and what I'm sharing with you today. You begin with your values. You begin identifying what those are and what are your desired values. All of the good and all of the bad. Put it all on paper. This is just for you. You're not going to show it to nobody. Then we're going to set our intention. What do we envision for ourselves? We're going to become intentional. We're no longer going to follow people's magical lives on social media. We're going to create our own. So you get to be as creative and as intentional as you want to be. And then we're going to get into some action. We're going to get into actually practicing what we're saying we're going to do. We're going to identify our priorities and our goals, and we're going to start working on them. And that's going to be a long process. I don't want you to think that by same time next month, you're going to be locked in and have it all figured out. You're not going to. And this may cause some anxiety, but that's okay. And then as we go through the year and as we are checking in with ourselves and completing this wheel of life, if you want to do that, or as we're reflecting on how things have changed for us, we're going to want to have some harmony and alignment with what we're doing. So this is something that will continue to evolve for me. I wanted to share it with you. I always think that the beginning of the year for me doesn't start till later in the year. The beginning of the year for me, it's never January 1st, because a lot of reflection and a lot of thought comes into what am I going to do now? What is the world like today? How am I experiencing that? And how do I want to show up? And that changes year to year. If you live in the US, that's changed for us very significantly in the ways that we will have to show up and do what we have to do to either stand up for the things that we believe in or trying to understand those with different views. And how do we do that? So there's a lot of growth that will happen for a lot of us. There's a lot of uncomfortable conversations that may happen. So then that may change my values. That may change my intention for the year. My harmony and alignment may look a little bit different because my priority this year will be taking care of myself, my mental health, taking care of myself, my soul, so that it doesn't die with all of the horrible things that I see online. So it's going to change year by year, depending on how you're experiencing this world and this life. But I do really encourage you to become intentional about how you're moving forward. I don't think we have the luxury to just keep repeating what everybody else is doing online, because it's not unique. It's not ours. And what we need right now, I think worldwide, is to have genuine people show up in genuine ways and authentic ways. And you can do that through little things like this. It doesn't cost you anything. So if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would say join communities that speak to you. I will invite you to become part of the School of Humankind. This is where a lot of these ideas have come from, conversations with some of the faculty that I've met in the past year. And really just surround yourself with people who are willing to help you grow and willing to help you expand who you are and how you experience the world. So sign up to School of Humankind emails, social media. We do not post any horrible, traumatic things on there. So if you need a break from that, that is a good place to go. But just take care of yourselves. Reach out to me if you need anything. You have my email on the sign up, or you may find me on LinkedIn associated with the School of Humankind. In any capacity that I can support you, I am more than welcome to do that. I truly believe that when you contribute, the world contributes back to you, and it can be a reciprocal situation. So hope you have a lovely, lovely day and have a wonderful life and weekend. This is Friday for me, so if it's not the weekend, have a great week.
Good on you.